Good evening. This is video lecture number 7, dated September 10, 2020. So this week you are reading the first article related to the myth of the model American family. It is a memoir by Gary Soto called Looking for Work. And he basically tells about his experiences. When he was 9 years old, he was growing up in Fresno, the San Joaquin County area, I believe, in about 1961. Talking about him and his family and his relation to his neighbors and his experiences at school. And basically, Gary, let me tell you a little bit about a background about Gary Soto. So Gary Soto is a published poet, children and adult work poet, novelist, and fiction and nonfiction writer. So he's a pretty successful published writer. He was basically not encouraged really when he was a youngster in school in Fresno, as you're going to read this article, but later on he acquired a interest in poetry when he was in high school, and eventually got his degree at CSU, Fresno State University, I believe, and he basically got his master's in fine art, the first Mexican American getting a master's in fine art at UC Riverside. And eventually he became a published author of a lot of famous works. He was nominated for various awards, and he was also professor at UC Berkeley too, and UC Riverside. So Professor Soto actually was very successful as he moved through life, and he's a very inspiring story. But his memoir talked about his less auspicious beginning in childhood, and he basically published that memoir, and this excerpt of that publication appeared in the Rereading America. So basically he talks about, in this Looking for Work, about his experiences growing up in the industrial side of Fresno, relating to his family. His father, Manuel, died when he was about 5 years old. So basically there's a missing father in the story. He doesn't really mention it in a memoir, but there's basically a missing father, Manuel Soto. And his mom, Angie, is basically trying to raise Gary, his younger sister, and also his younger brother. So 3 kids in Fresno, and trying to work as a single mom. So his mother, Angie, is pretty inspiring. And we meet Angie in the memoir. And Gary is basically, as a child, he's looking for work in the neighborhood, maybe due to his missing father. He's basically looking for odd jobs in his neighborhood, encounters a lot of his white neighbors. So you can see that interaction there. What do you think of that? He also is talking about his classmates in school and his experience in school, and how he was classified as in a lower group. And what do you think about that too? So that's also something to think about, that Gary encountered a lot of racism while he was young, and how he relates to that from a kid's eye or child's perspective. He's in the memoir, he's also talking about his dinner time experience with the family, and trying to get his family to emulate the model American families. And this relates back to our myth of the model American family. Gary is basically trying to get his families to live up to that myth. So that's also another critical thing for you to look at and think about as he go through his childhood. And what changes do you see with Gary as he progresses in his childhood in terms of work? Looking for work, and how his attitude towards his family. Does it change even in his short memoir? He's trying to change his family, but what do you think about how he views his family at the end of the memoir? And also, how does he view work, and how does he view his neighbors? So that's a really great memoir, a little excerpt, a little introduction. If you haven't read Gary Soto, it's a little bit of an introduction to his writing. So I think you'll really be interested in that, and how it relates to your life, your family. Again, the myth of the model family, American society in the late 50s, early 60s, in terms of racism, things like that, and basically life of a young kid in early 1960s Fresno. So I think that'll be a great reading, and you'll be able to relate that to the myth of the model American family. So you'll see Gary's family, and then you're also reading about Jeanette's family in the Glass Castle, and how they illuminate or basically contrast with the myth of the model American family. So all these readings relate together. So I think that's really good. And family is really one of the big parts of our lives, and it's going to be basically the most important part of our life as we go go through life. So again, this myth is really significant to our lives, and I just want you to think critically about that. So that is the myth of the model American family and how it relates to Gary Soto in that reading. And there will be homework questions. There are homework questions that I just posted on that for you to think about, where you get to pick one of the topics in Gary Soto's article to write about there. And then you're also getting into your glass castle, your group activity too. I wanted to mention a few things about that. You're basically forming a group where you'll be being a student teacher. You'll be summarizing your group's part of the glass castle, presenting that to me, and then you'll be asking critical questions to me. I'll be acting as a student. You'll be asking critical questions on your part, and you'll be receiving critical questions that students in other groups will be developing for you. So you'll have to respond to critical questions that other students will be giving to you, as well as me too, right? So basically, that's a really should be a fun group activity on the glass castle, and you'll be involved as a group, as groups throughout the entire process, whether you're asking questions to other groups before their presentation or whether your group is presenting too. So basically, I gave that assignment out. Just take a look at that. Right now, you're basically in your group, deciding on a team leader and assistant leader, and doing some initial coordination, exchanging content information, and you'll be virtually coordinating and preparing as a group. And basically getting ready. The first group, they're coming up in a couple weeks. They'll be presenting in a few weeks. But the other groups, you won't be presenting so fast, but you will be focusing on giving questions, developing critical questions for group number one and the other groups that are not your group. You'll be giving critical questions to them and submitting them 2 days before each presentation. So you'll be involved with the whole book throughout the whole process. Take a look at the assignment again, and please text, email, or call me if you have any questions on the assignment. But think about that assignment coming up. Okay, so enjoy the rest of this week and enjoy the weekend, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay, thank you.